Welcome everyone to the GovHacker Digital Conference for Monday the 15th of August. This evening we have the Australian Bureau of Statistics presenting a talk around accessing the value of census data. We have Nicole, Trott and Hugh Stehlik here this evening to talk to us about the census that was conducted last year. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you're watching from. Where I am streaming this from, I would like to acknowledge the Yagara and the Turrbal people. GovHack pays respects to elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. So I would like to welcome this evening Nicole and Hugh.
Hello.
So, over to you, Nicole.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Nicole Trott. I'm from the 2021 Census Communication Team at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and I'm joined by Hugh Stehlik from the ABS Data API team. We would also like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of the land that we're presenting on here today in Canberra, and pay our respects to their elders, both past and present, and to acknowledge members of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community who may be attending this session today. Today, I'll be providing an overview of the value of census data before I hand over to Hugh, who'll be providing an overview and live demonstration of census data tools that are available. So the census is the most comprehensive snapshot of Australia. It tells the story of our economic, our social and cultural makeup, and also tells us how we're changing. It provides enormous value to Australia as it's the only data set that we have at such a detailed level about Australians. The census collects information on demographic characteristics such as age and sex, types of housing, education, participation in the labour force, occupation and industries, marital status, and family size. Although some of these topics are covered by other data sources, only the census can provide this information on a standard basis for the whole country, as well as for smaller geographic areas and small population groups. So information from the census helps communities, governments, businesses throughout the country make informed decisions about where the right services are needed across Australia. We know it informs big things like electoral boundaries or large infrastructure projects, but it also helps provide services for local communities. So it's used widely by the nonprofit sector and local business. We'd like to share a video with you highlighting this value of census data to Australian communities.
So in this 93rd year of the Royal Flying Doctor Service, we'll provide care to some 350,000 Australians that live in country and rural Australia. Our 1,900 staff will work from 23 air bases right around the country, utilising a fleet of 79 aircraft, making the Royal Flying Doctors Australia's third largest airline.
To determine health provision in rural and remote areas, we used ABS population data. We really needed to know where people were living so we could predict into the future what services we should send to those areas.
Today, and on any given day, we'll fly to some 50 different locations around the country to provide primary healthcare clinics where people can visit doctors, nurses, dentists and mental health professionals. By using the census data, we can have confidence about who we're seeing, the types of communities that we're visiting and the needs that exist within those communities. So the Royal Flying Doctor Service encouraged people that live in rural and remote Australia, particularly our Indigenous brothers and sisters, to respond to the census when you get your opportunity. Because it's with the information that the census provides that the Royal Flying Doctors can ensure people in country Australia get access to the healthcare that they really need. Every stat tells a story.
So using census data, the Royal Flying Doctor Service can plan where and when its services are needed most and provide primary and emergency healthcare to people living in remote and regional Australia. Other organisations like Playgroup Australia use census data to plan where playgroups are going to be needed to help young families connect with each other. The census is also the only national estimate of the prevalence of homelessness. So non-profit organisations like Orange Sky Australia use census data. They use it to provide mobile laundry services and showers for people experiencing homelessness. And for the first time, the 2021 census included a question about service with the Australian Defence Force, and the Department of Veterans Affairs will use that data to help improve services for veterans and their families. So the value of the census data to the Australian economy is immense. In 2019, the ABS commissioned an independent report that found that for every $1 we invest in the census, $6 of value is generated for the Australian community. So the first release of 2021 census data was on the 28th of June. It included key demographic data, cultural diversity data, and data from our new questions on long-term health conditions and service with the Australian Defence Force. The second release of census data is coming on the 12th of October. That'll include labour force information, non-school qualifications, method of travel to work, workplace address, and internal migration. And that'll be really interesting this year because of the COVID impacts. And then the third release of census data is coming in early to mid 2023, and that'll include socioeconomic indexes for areas, estimates of homelessness, distance of travel to work, and the Australian Census longitudinal data set. The 2021 census data has revealed several insights into Australia and how we're changing, and there's a lot of really interesting stories coming from the data. If you're interested in learning about these, you can watch our recent national and state data seminars on the ABS YouTube channel, or you can get to those from our website, abs.gov.au/census/events. You can also register there for upcoming events, including the Census Health Data Seminar on the 30th of August. Another excellent resource if you're learning about the value of census data is the Census Dictionary. It's designed to help users better understand and interpret census data. The dictionary includes information on each variable and has the variable definition, the scope, that is the population that the variable is applicable to, how the variable is created, questions on the census form that are related to the variable, history and changes, so changes to questions or methodology, data use considerations, which will include any non-response rate information, and related variables and glossary terms. So I encourage you to jump on the ABS website and check out that resource. I'll now hand over to Hugh, who will cover census data tools.
Thank you, Nicole. And thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah, hopefully Nicole's presentation sparked a bit of inspiration about the sort of amazing things that people are able to do with census data, and a few thoughts about how you might be able to use it for GovHack 2022. So now I'm going to take you through some of the main channels for actually getting this data, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions afterwards as well. So here we have the ABS website. So if you come through to the Census tab up the top and go to Find Data and Census Data Tools, this is the main channel to kind of get down and get to the data. I should say we'll link to all of this on the Hackerspace as well. So all these links will be available. The main tools I'll show today are data packs, and that's a place to go to find, you know, all the data essentially. If you want to just get a CSV file with everything, data packs is the place to go. We'll look at geo packages briefly. That is where to go if you're interested in geospatially enabled data. And then we'll take a look at Data Explorer, which is a great tool for kind of slicing and dicing the data, coming up with a specific kind of chunk and downloading that. And we'll also look at the ABS Data API, which is a great open data API that has all of this data available as well. But to jump into data packs first, as I said, this is the main place to go if you just really want to get everything. The data here is broken up in a couple of types. So first off, make sure you're selecting the 2021 year. We want to make sure you get the latest data. For the data type, general community profile is the main type that we recommend using. That has files about all of those topics that Nicole just talked you through. But we also have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples profiles. If you're specifically interested in that data, that is a great resource. And if you're interested in how the census has revealed changes over time, then you might be interested in the time series profiles. This compares data from the 2011 census, 2016 census, and the most recent 2021 census. So a great place to go to see those changes over time. But for today, I'll quickly do a bit of a demo of the general community profiles. We now select the geography we're interested in, and there's a huge number of geographic breakdowns of this data. So hopefully you'll be able to find the kind of breakdown that you're after. So you can look at data for all of Australia. We can look at data by state. We have the Australian Statistical Geography Standard, ASGS, so SA4s all the way down to SA1, which is pretty low level data. We have greater capital city statistical areas. So this is the region you want if you want to, for example, look at data for all of Sydney or all of Melbourne. We have local government areas. So that's our council data. Suburbs and localities. So if you're after data about a specific suburb, that's where to go. Postal areas, that's your postcodes. And we also have Commonwealth and state electoral divisions as well. So if you're interested in doing something around electoral boundaries, that is the data you want. Perhaps we'll look briefly at suburbs and localities. So once you've selected these on the left-hand side, on the right here, you'll get your actual data packs. So if you want data for all of Australia, in this case, all suburbs in Australia, you just download that top one, or you can download just specific states or territories. I've prepared one earlier just to save some time. So once you download that zip file and unpack it, what you'll get is a few folders. And probably the first one to jump into is the metadata folder. And if you open the Excel file down here at the bottom, that will give you all of the metadata about the different data sets or different tables here. So there are 42 general community profile tables. They're broken up on theme, so basic demographic information, background, language spoken, information about health conditions and so on. So you can scroll through and find the table that has that particular data that you're interested in. So for example, today we might look at table G09, which is country of birth by age and sex. So we can then open up the main data folder here and go to table 9. Now, some of these tables actually split because there's a lot of data here. They're split into more manageable chunks. But we'll open up table G09. And what we have here is a CSV file, and all of the rows are our geographical regions. So in this case, they're all of our suburbs, and all of our columns are our information about our other variables. So in this case, we have our gender, the country of birth, and age breakdowns. So the codes here are reasonably self-explanatory, but to basically confirm what these mean, and particularly to get your suburb codes, or your geographical region codes, you'll come back to the metadata tab, and the main metadata file we looked at before if we go to our second tab, that has the information about what these codes mean. Oops. And if we go to the geography description metadata table, this will include all of the information about our geographical regions. So in this case, our suburb codes are here as well. So hopefully that's a really quick overview of how to get that data. As I said, you know, if you're someone who likes to get the, you know, just the full width of everything and jump straight into it, data packs are definitely a really great starting point. It's obviously a lot of data, but it can be a great way to just get in there and pull some data out really quickly. Let's now take a quick look at geo packages. So the geo packages download screen looks very similar to data packs and works in much the same way. You can choose the specific table that you're interested in here and then choose the boundary type that you want and then download that data pack or that geo pack rather. So it's the exact same data that's available in general community profiles, but it is geospatially enabled. So it comes kind of packaged up with those geographical regions. So if you're interested in looking at that data on a map, doing some geospatial analysis, then this is the place to go. The data is in geo package format, which is an open standard. So hopefully that should be compatible with all of your major geospatial analysis tools. I might come now to the next tool, which is the Data Explorer. So Data Explorer is a great tool for kind of actually exploring that data a bit more deeply in a web browser interface. So if you haven't worked with census data before and it's a bit intimidating to jump into a huge CSV file, then this can be a great option to actually explore that data and drill down and find that slice that you want. So on the Data Explorer homepage, you'll find Census 21. And we have, again, the geographical breakdowns, the different region types. Let's look at some local government area data, and we'll open that same country of birth data set. So when you open Data Explorer, you'll get a kind of a default view that is, in this case, just giving us one particular local government area. But the power of this platform is that you can filter and search through this data to come up with the slice of data that you want. So if we're interested perhaps in people born in India, we can do a search under country of birth, select India, and it will automatically filter that data. Perhaps we're only interested in people under 24, so we can do a quick click and drag and select those age breakdowns. But maybe we're interested in all local government areas in New South Wales. So we can come in here, select New South Wales, and if we deselect our Albury region, that will act as a wildcard, and by not specifying any particular region, we'll return all available regions, in this case, all in New South Wales. So that's looking pretty good. We can also have pivot functionality in this tool, so we can change what's in our rows and columns to create the table we want. And the good thing is that as we're making these filters and these changes to our tables, it's automatically updating our URL. So we can bookmark this table. If you're working in a team, you can copy that URL, send it to someone else in your team, you know, say, hey, this is the data I'm looking at. What do you think? So it's a great way to kind of collaborate in that sense. Once you've come up with some data that you like, you can download this table in Excel, or you can also download it as a CSV file as well. So that's can be really valuable for quickly kind of getting a slice of data, getting it out into Excel or CSV, and then plugging it into whatever project you might be working on. The other thing that I'll mention here is the ABS Data API. So all of the data in Data Explorer is actually being drawn from our ABS Data API. And as you make your filter and make your selections, the tool will automatically generate an API call for returning that data that you're viewing. So you can come in here and copy this, and that is your API call to get that same data, which is really useful. So you can get that data in XML by default. We can also change the format here. So we can return JSON data, or we can also request CSV as well through the API. So I won't go into a huge amount of detail about using the API, but I will give a quick plug to our API documentation. You can find that linked under the Developer API tab in Data Explorer. So if you come here, there's lots of information in our user guide about how to use the API, and some worked examples and information about getting it in the right format that you're after. I will just say that the API uses the Statistical Data and Metadata Exchange format, SDMX, which some of you might be familiar with. That's an international standard, and the really good thing about having that standard is that there is some open source plugins and existing code that you can use for that standard. So if you're working in R, there's SDMX R plugin, there's existing code for Python, there's a Power BI plugin, there's we've got some information in our user guide for how to pull the API data into Excel. So if you're working in some of those software platforms, then there may be some existing code that you can use to kind of give you a leg up in using that API and getting that data into your system really quickly. But I think that's all from me. We might pause there, and I'll hand back to Jason. Thank you.
It helps if I unmute myself. Thank you very much to both of you for going through that. It was great to see some of the use cases, as well as how you can actually use some of this data from it. So we've got some questions from the audience. So I'll just say, for anyone that is watching this live on YouTube, if you drop your questions into the chat on YouTube, I'll be able to pass them through to the presenters. So one of the first ones that we had is, will there be people from the ABS around on the competition weekend coming up to assist?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And absolutely. So myself, I'll be available as a mentor. We also have Michelle Philo, who works in my team and is a great supporter of GovHack. So she'll be available. And we'll have people available from the Census team as well. So yeah, we're on Slack already. The channel is talk-abs. So feel free to hit us up in there with any questions. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you on the weekend.
Oh, awesome. So the API that you showed, is there any special permissions that you need? Do we need an API key, or is it accessible for anyone to start pulling this data to work with?
Yep, it's accessible and open to anyone. You can register for an API key if you're interested in doing that. We definitely encourage you, if you decide after GovHack to kind of, you've come up with an amazing idea and you want to kind of turn it into a real product, that's when we'd encourage you to reach out to us. register for an API key, make sure we get your contact details in our register of interest so we can keep you updated of any scheduled outages or things like that. But certainly for GovHack, yeah, there's no requirement to register. Please just jump in and have at it.
Awesome. Um, for Hugh, do you have any recommendations for tools that you can view data on a map?
Ooh, you're stretching the limits of my knowledge. I'm not an expert in geospatial data. We definitely have worked with a tool called Terrier.js, or it's also powers a product called National Map, which our census data is already available in National Map, and it's the Terrier.js is kind of open source, so that's something that you could look into. I know that there's been work done to connect that geospatial data into Esri and those platforms, although they're proprietary. But yeah, it's starting to reach the limit of my knowledge. We have reached out to our locations insight team at the ABS. We're hoping we might have someone from that team available on the weekend. But if you have particular questions about a certain tool or how to use that data, I'm happy for you to hit us up and we'll take those on notice.
Yeah. Also, from perspective of GovHack, we'll have a large amount of mentors there, not just from the ABS, but there may be some ones that are specific in in geospatial data. So you can work with mentors from the ABS to understand the data, and then work with a mentor from a geospatial perspective. So get the knowledge from both of these resources. Um, so. Um, the census is done every 5 years, so this means that we only get snapshots. Is there a way, estimates that we can get in between, so that we can work out like what a population is assumed to be in the between times?
Yeah, so the really rich detail of the census is only published every 5 years, unfortunately. We can't run it every year. But there are other data sets you can look at combining with census data to get some of that picture of yearly data. So the ABS publishes estimated resident population, for example, which is a great tool to look at for that census data by year, or state data, which is released every quarter. And there are other data sets as well. You're welcome to kind of browse through the Australian Bureau of Statistics website. We have obviously a whole wealth of social and economic data that's published much more frequently.
Okay. But from what you can share, can you go through if there's any what data validation techniques that you work with for the census to look at data quality?
I can take that one if you like. So there are a number of things that the ABS does right throughout the planning and collection process to ensure data quality, and then in data processing as well. So there's information on our website that details that process, which includes comparing to other data sources, previous census collections. And we also have an independent assurance panel post-census that does independent data validation to ensure that the data is high quality and fit for purpose.
That's great, awesome. So I'm just going through this. If you have any other questions, I'm just seeing there's discussions that's happening in the chat at the moment around some different tools for using some geodata. So these are mainly looking at things like the QGIS application, and using things like leaflet and open layers. So they're going back to that question about the mapping. So there's a number of different tools you can utilize for that. But I think I'm out of questions. So I'd like to thank both of you, Nicole and Hugh, for the presentation this evening. Is there any last comments that you would like to share?
No, thank you for having us, and good luck to everyone on the weekend.
Yeah, thanks. It's been great to talk to you, and look forward to seeing you on Slack or in person if you're at GovHack in Canberra.
Okay, so that concludes our talk this evening. So thank you very much for both Nicole and Hugh and all the people from the ABS that are supporting us both tonight and throughout the weekend and following that up. We have another talk coming up tomorrow night from the Clean Energy Regulator. So if you're interested in that, make sure to register, and we'll send out information about that tomorrow before it, so that you can join us for that talk. Thank you very much, everyone.